A very good morning to you and welcome to the Brúna Bóinne Visitor Centre in County Meath and to this first ever live television transmission of the winter solstice, the midwinter sunrise at the Passage Tomb at Newgrange. You're very welcome to our programme this morning. We'll be on the air for the next hour or so, including recording with our cameras inside and outside the Passage Tomb the moment that the sun comes over the valley of the Boyne here and, weather permitting, the sunlight reaches into the tomb and illuminates the chamber within. And I have to tell you, the news this morning is that there's every likelihood we will see this spectacular sight, which, it has to be said, doesn't occur every year. The morning this morning is a glorious morning in County Meath, clear skies, and we hope very much that we'll be able to witness this extraordinary event. And so we await, as our ancestors waited 5,000 years ago for the sunrise. Just a word about why we in RT have decided to start our Millennium coverage with this particular event. It's not that the people of the Boyne Valley 5 millennia ago would have celebrated the Millennium. They didn't even, in the sense that we would understand it, have a calendar. But they did understand the seasons. They saw for themselves how the winter gave way to the spring, how the summer followed, and then the autumn. And they witnessed it, and they knew that for their own livelihoods and their own survival, the passage of the seasons was essential. And so they would gather inside the tomb, perhaps as we can see here with our miniature cameras, or outside where the crowds are gathering even this morning. And they would wait for the sun to penetrate the tomb as it does only at this time of the year. And these are the pictures which we have coming to you live from inside the chamber. And they're the pictures that will capture the sunrise in the next half an hour or so. And there you can see the crowd outside. Joe Duffy is standing by outside the tumulus with someone who's very important this morning, among many people who are very important, but someone, Joe, who can give us an indication about what exactly we're going to see. Over to you.
Good morning, Brian, and good morning, everybody. The longest night is about to end. The sunrise, we hope, in about 10 minutes or so will be spectacular. Gerald Fleming is here with me from Met Éireann, and a man who never gets a frosty reception. And if anyone can tell us with some certainty what's going to happen this morning, Gerald, it's you. What do you think looking across the ridge?
It's really looking fabulous. We had this very active weather system here last night, and it's really been very well behaved and cleared out of the way. The last of it, the very thin high cloud out on the horizon, is receding. Now there are a few little bits of mist and that, so with weather you can never be 100% until it actually happens, but at this stage we'd have to be about 99.5% certain that the sun will come up over that ridge.
Brilliant.
And will illuminate that roof box.
So it's been here, as we know, for 5,000 years.
That's right.
It's turned, it marks the turning of the year. It's a timepiece, it's a monument, it's a tomb, it's a grave, it's a magnificent piece of work, 5,000 years old. It has marked the turning of the year every single year, so there's no Y5K bug this morning. Is it going to knock us now?
I think this one was built to last, and it'll last another 5K, I'm sure, after we've well gone out of this world.
Okay, Padraig Clancy is with us. One of the, Brian, the great sense here this morning of the people who've gathered. Good morning, everybody. About 300 people have been here in the darkness. Is a great sense of enthusiasm and celebration. And remember, it was like this, we presume, 5,000 years ago, when this timepiece worked perfectly then, and can you think of anything that's working perfectly 5,000 years later, especially at this time of year? Padraig, you've been in.
Absolutely.
Give people a sense of the excitement of it.
Extraordinary. I was here on Sunday, and the sun came up, and Claire Tuffy, the main guide here, said, this is as good as it gets, she said. And like the whole thing, we were in there in the total dark, waiting, at the point of waiting, like almost in a womb. We couldn't see anything, and there's that sense of anticipation. Would the sun come up? What would happen? And the next thing is, there's a light appears across the floor and gradually gets a little stronger, and it grows, and the next thing is then, you can go in to see each other. And this, what happened for me was the whole sense of, 5,000 years went. There's the past and the present together, that it's our common humanity, that there's no difference between us and today and the people 5,000 years ago. We're waiting with the mystery of life, the mystery of the darkness and the light in all our lives and in the universe.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. We're all staying here. Brian, come back to us in about 10 minutes' time and we'll watch live the turning of the year and the turning of the natural year and the turning of the natural millennium. And this building has marked the turning of the millennium 5 times, the turning of the century 50 times, and the turning of the year 5,000 times. Join us in 10 minutes.
All right. Joe, thanks very much indeed for that. Well, we've got many more guests to talk to both at the monument itself and here in the Brúna Báine Visitors Centre, and we'll be hearing from them a little later in the programme. We've also got music for you, we've got poetry. Seamus Heaney will be reciting one of his poems about the experience that we will be, we hope, witnessing this morning. But before that, we wanted to give you something of an introduction to Newgrange, to try to offer you some pointers about why the monument was constructed, the people who constructed it, the kind of lives they led, and what it tells us about the lives they led. So we prepared this short film, just by way, as I say, of an introduction to Newgrange, and here it is.
Light from dark, the once and always goal of man. Through the sacred places of a Stone Age people in the valley of the Boyne, we catch a tantalizing glimpse of how, briefly but precisely, they brought their sun god to earth in their Neolithic cathedral to start a new year and show where and who they were in time and space 5,000 years ago. Newgrange, the largest of the Boyne Valley's Stone Age monuments, an acre in extent, 80 metres in diameter, 12 metres high. Colossal simply as a feat of engineering and organisational achievement, holds within its bulk, through a narrow passage, a secret heart, the ceremonial chamber. The gently curving Boyne brought the first settlers here to begin a continuous story from oral tradition to written record. Myth and history inextricably flow together. In this small area of Brúna Báine, the bend or dwelling place of the Boyne, countless generations have left their mark in hundreds of monuments to their dreams of immortality. For us to see them as they saw themselves, we can have only a bare intimation of that, but we can see they could do more than till and fence their fields beside the river of the salmon of knowledge. In circles and ceremonial structures of many different kinds, whose purpose and significance we can only guess, these people tell us still they were not mere grubbers of the soil, ciphers at the whim of fate. They had something to do and say for themselves. Often at risk from mortal danger, among their cities of the dead, they proclaimed a kind of immortality. Huge decorated curbstones surround the Boyne Valley passage graves, 18 satellites surround the great central mound at Nouth, a metaphor surely, the swelling belly of the earth raised to receive the bones and ashes of important ancestors, life and death in one continuum. Individual existence, maybe only a 30-year life expectancy, impelled them to do more, to redeem the daily grind, flimsy huts, like they themselves quickly gone, but together, 400 people in up to 40 years, without horses or the wheel as far as we know, could move a ton of stone, as solid as their hopes for future remembrance. What could be done was done. And there they stand, stark and beautiful affirmation that these people had a vision of permanence. Boyne Valley excavations have revealed over 700 decorated stones. These megalithic big stone artists could claim a spark of genius from their sun god. While other ancient peoples left written records, with only stone and wooden tools, our people here also gave a kind of message, a sign to reassure themselves at once a common language of order and continuity, a prayer almost, a mantra mandala in stone. Special areas were set aside for ritual, conducted by a priestly caste, no doubt, who preserved the order of ceremonies. The dead would be cremated outside, their ashes then conducted past the sentinel stone to enter the womb of their forefathers. Ghostly, abstract carvings, free-flowing. Nowth, with a quarter of all known megalithic art, was no cultural dead end, but the confluence of styles from all over Neolithic Europe. Surrounded by the familiar symbols in the dark recesses of the cruciform chambers of the passage graves, ashes and bones of countless generations lay cradled in their basins of stone. In the shadow of representations of their former selves, forever carved in what truly is a rock of ages. Covering more than an acre, 200,000 tons of layered stone and sods, like a city built on a hill, the huge mound of Newgrange has the entrance perfectly placed to receive the first rays of the rising sun. Quartz, Cloch na Graine, sunstone from the Dublin Wicklow Mountains, studded with water-rolled stones from Dundalk Bay, brought in perilous coracles by sea and river from more than 60 kilometres away, made a retaining wall, a setting for the roof box, the opening to life for these Stone Age people of the Boyne Valley. The sun gave light and heat and growth and the rhythm and round of all their lives. The earth, tilting on its axis, turns furthest from that sun as winter deepens in the northern hemisphere. There at Brú na Bóinne, the dwelling place of the Boyne, the Stone Age people watched the giver of their life, the god of many ancient people, as it seemed to travel and set further and further down the eastern horizon, and for a shorter and shorter time each day. At the winter solstice, our December 21st, it seemed to stop, then begin its journey back. They would entice it back, build a temple with a special portal. And at Newgrange, around the winter solstice, and only then, the rising sun shines directly through the roof box slit. In this magical but exactly calculated moment, Stone Age man and his sun god once again renew their annual compact at the New Year's turning. The technique of corbelling, overlapping the edges of stone slabs, inwards and upwards, to be capped by, at Newgrange, a lintel stone weighing over a ton, and waterproofing the interior for 5 millennia, shows the consummate engineering and architectural skills of the Brú na Bóinne builders, and all around us too, a self-conscious sophistication of the imaginative mind. While we can only guess at their interior life, the repetition of the famous designs, chevrons, lozenges, spirals, must surely suggest continuity, renewal, rebirth, ultimately an expression of human consciousness. We think, we plan, we leave our mark on our environment, therefore we are. The god of light and life bestows his gifts unequally throughout the Neolithic year. The Romans would call him Sol Invictus, unconquerable by the darkness. The people of the Boyne ensured his annual victory by making a home for him at Newgrange. They share in the power of this god, collaboration and celebration together, to claim his continuing benevolence in the dawn after the longest night. They can bask in his approval of their cleverness and ingenuity. Everywhere the imagery of fertility, creation and religious impulses interwoven and unmistakable. The spirits of the ancestors too share in the ceremonies of union with the life-giver, calling to him in the name of the living people who built these Boyne Valley monuments over 5 millennia ago. Each one at once, a shelter, a refuge, a place for every generation, a two-way doorway to what for them there ever was and yet might be.
And that introduction to Newgrange was scripted by John O'Donoghue and narrated by Mary Lowe. Now we're a little under 10 minutes away from the sunrise, and we're going back to the tomb and to Joe Duffy, who's standing by. Joe?
Brian, I'm looking up in the sky, Brian, and a jet flying over, supersonic jet, a stream above us there, and below us this magnificent monument, our Millenium Dome, except it's 5,000 years older than the London Millenium Dome. Taoiseach, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Joe.
Can you sense the excitement already?
I can. It's a terrific morning, Joe, and I think this time it's very clear. My last visit here 2 years ago, I'm afraid a cloud came in at the last moment, so we won't believe it till we see it, but it looks like a good morning, and it's a very clear morning, so if that holds for another 10 minutes or so, we're okay.
It is a magnificent monument, not just to the people who built it, but thankfully to the state over the last 30 and 40 years, and archaeologists who have retrieved it and cherished it.
They've done a wonderful job since 1967. It's a great history, and you know, it's hard, everyone talking about everything millennium, but you know, this is 3200 BC, which is extraordinary, yeah. And it's so important to the country, and it's now so internationally known, and that grows all of the time.
Okay, you go on in. It's very narrow passage. It's deep. You're one of the few VIPs allowed in. As you know,
it's lucky I'm trimmed, Joe.
Taoiseach used to be buried in there. You know that, of course. Enjoy yourself and mind our cameras. Thank you. In you go. Okay. David Sweetman, Chief State Archaeologist. What will the Taoiseach see when he goes in
Well, he's lucky in that there won't be too many people in, because normally there's a very big crowd and it's difficult to see. But he's fortunate this morning, and there's going to be a terrific atmosphere in there. And when he gets in, he's going to see the light coming very slowly up the passage, creeping up towards him. And once it gets in, it's going to light up the whole chamber, and it's going to be a fantastic light, kind of a goldy, yellowy colour inside.
You can see the VIPs going in there, Taoiseach Celia Larkin, Minister Sheila De Valera, a number of people from Dúchas, a number of citizens who've been waiting for 10 years and are waiting this to get in here, and that's how cherished it is and how important it is. It's a wonderful place to be. There's the Taoiseach going in. Frank Prendergast, just you're a surveyor and an archaeologist. Just briefly, I want you to look across the horizon and try and give people a sense. You've been here before, yes, of what's happening. Give us the sky is the ridge is beginning to brighten. There's a bit of low cloud. How are we looking?
It's looking pretty good. There is some low cloud on the horizon, but in about 1 to 2 minutes time now, the first flash of the rising sun at winter solstice will begin to appear on the horizon, Joe. And what we must remember is that the sun as we see it now is different, because 5,000 years ago the tilt of the Earth's axis was slightly different, and the sun would have risen about 2 sun diameters to the right hand side. So that will happen now a little bit differently to how it happened then. But nevertheless, we still have to wait another 4 minutes for the full disk of the sun to appear on the horizon before the shaft of light will start to move down through the roof box and into the chamber itself.
Through the roof box, still working 5,000 years later. Back to you, Brian.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Joe. Well, I'm joined here in the Visitors Centre by 2 of our guests this morning, by Eimear O'Connor, who is a painter and has visited many of these sites, and by Gabriel Cooney, who's an archaeologist from University College Dublin. First of all, to you, Gabriel, the people who built this monument, what sort of lives do they lead? What do we know about them?
Well, we know a lot from their physical remains. They, as the video said, lived to about, on average, 30, 35, hard physical lives, but probably muscular people, well used to a hard life, much harder life than we live, but at the same time attuned to the environment. People who had been living here in Boyne Valley for 1,000 years as farmers before Newgrange was built.
Eimear O'Connor, you've, as I say, visited many of these sites. You've used them for inspiration in your paintings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What purpose do you think Newgrange served? Why do you think they were compelled to build this monument?
I think Newgrange works on many levels, and I really think that the people were intensely spiritual, and they were representing rebirth of the soul, rebirth of the land, but also their own physical rebirth. I think it was a time of year where it was important to make children, so that at a later stage, 9 months' time, there would be time to rest before the harvest came in. So I think it works really on many, many levels.
Well, we don't know about the ceremonies which took place accompanying the winter solstice, but we've put in place, if you like, our own ceremony this morning, and we've asked Eimear Quinn, Ireland's 1996 Eurovision Song Contest winner, to compose 2 songs for us this morning. One, if you like, to welcome the sunrise, and the other to celebrate its arrival. So her first piece this morning is called Invocation. Here's Eimear Quinn. Invocation, written and performed by Eimear Quinn. Thank you very much indeed, Eimear. That was lovely. And you'll be back a little later, I know, with your second performance this morning. The pictures that you were looking at during the performance were live pictures of the sunrise from our cameras at and around the Newgrange monument. I should say we have one camera on a crane at some height above the ground, so we're able to get, if you like, a preview of the sunrise. So it looked rather larger. I think that's the one on the crane. So we're getting a slightly clearer view there, perhaps, than you'll get on the ground. But but as you can see there, just the faintest hint of clouds moving across the face of the sun. And very soon now, those first rays will begin to reach into the chamber as they reached in 5 millennia ago, and as they have reached in for the last 3 decades, because it was only in the 1960s that this phenomenon was rediscovered, that the archaeologists working on the site found the roof box, the space above the doorway, which allows the sun to enter. Although there had been stories circulating in this part of County Meath that at one time the sun did enter the chamber, and it seems that that memory remained on, lingered on in the folk memory of people here in the Boyne Valley. And so the archaeologists, when they began to explore the site, discovered the roof box, discovered the lintel, and discovered this extraordinary phenomenon, which certainly is unique in Ireland and is only found in a very small number of sites elsewhere in Europe. And you can see there, that's the roof box just on top of the doorway, and it's on the same level as the floor of the chamber inside. And so the sun reaches in and travels the length of the passageway and then strikes the floor at the chamber. And I think we can see just there the beginnings of the light working its way in, because of course they have turned all the lights out inside the chamber itself. So as this moment will be witnessed, its full impact will be seen. The darkness relieved by the light. And there you are, for the first time, live television pictures from inside the Newgrange monument. Extraordinary pictures, I think. A moment for all of us to pause and to reflect and to feel a connection with our ancestors of so many years ago, 5,000 years ago, who went to this considerable effort, obviously it would have been, for a people of that sort to build this extraordinary monument. Joe, you're standing by, again, outside the grave.
Indeed, Brian, and the sense here, the strength of the sun, the warmth of the sun, the heavens meeting the earth is so intense here at the moment. There was a round of applause when the disk of the sun peeped up over the ridge here in the Boyne Valley. Geraldine Stout is an archaeologist. It's an artistic creation, it's a technological, it's an astronomical creation, it's also a philosophical creation as well.
It's a very, it's so, everybody here I'm sure feels emotional. I think that a great emotion, and I think there's this very strong emotional link with the past today. I think this is one of the few occasions where we can sense how people in prehistoric times felt about this great event of the year. And so there is this wonderful link with the past, this emotional link with the past this morning for all of us.
And in that,
to think that 5,000 years onwards we can still celebrate this solar event.
And to think we perceive Stone Age people as being stupid or whatever sometimes, and to look at this creation still working 5,000 years later, as we can see. And when you're inside the chamber, as I was yesterday, you cannot see the door. This is you had to get down and look and try to work out how they measured. Frank Prendergast, who we spoke to earlier, how did they measure and create such a monument, such a timepiece 5,000 years ago?
I think the great answer to that is that we still don't fully understand how they did it, and I hope we never do, but we can guess. And obviously they observed the sun from day to day, from month to month, and they had an understanding of its motions on the horizon, and they built their tomb accordingly. And Tom Ray of the Institute for Advanced Studies did a recent investigation of the geometry of this building and found it to be a much more clever design than anyone ever suspected. But if you move the length of the passage just a few more meters, or if you change the height of the roof box by a small amount, this would not happen. So in fact, that strengthens the idea that it was deliberate rather than accidental. So we have something here which was planned, which was intended.
And still working.
And still works.
Yeah. Padraig Ian, you're a folklorist as well. The wonderful thing about Newgrange is that the lintel, this roof box where the sun is now breaking through and is so important, so central to it, what lay undiscovered for 4,000 years, but folk memory, people around through their own parents and generations.
They knew about that, and they were actually saying that to like archaeologists, that the sun comes in at the solstice, at the winter solstice, you know, and that literally that the folk mind remembers these archetypal happenings, if you like, and the local people know their landscape all over the country. And there's probably people listening saying, do you know the sun comes in here on the solstice as well? And you know, so it's all held always within the folk memory. It's an extraordinary ability to remember and be exact. But what comes to me, I mean, I have to say Solstice of Lahasdoing, I have to say something in Irish. It's as if the primordial, the ancient language is coming up inside, you know, Solstice of Lahasdoing, the light of heaven be with us, you know. And I got a real sense too of, you know, if you like, the Christian and the pre-Christian coming together. I mean, we talk about Jesus, the light of the world, Solus Christ, and then you have the pre-Christian and the whole, like if you like, that whole mystery of the light and the dark.
And they were searching for meaning. And
it's like ourselves. I mean, that's the story of all our lives. It's the meaning, and it's been in touch with the mystery of life. And the first words that were spoken in Ireland by mythologically, the first person who stepped on the shores of Ireland is called Avergan. And his song, he said, I am the wind on the sea, I am the wave of the ocean, I am a beam of the sun. Right. It's Solus the grain in May. So the beam of the sun is with us today, you know, the first words ever spoken in Ireland.
And it's not just the sun beaming, Brian, it's the people here as well, as they must have been 5,000 years ago as they celebrated the new year. Happy New Year. Happy New Millennium. Happy New Millennium. Back to you, Brian.
You couldn't ask for a better morning to see what we are seeing, and we're going to go back to those pictures as the sun reaches down through the passageway and into the chamber within. I haven't experienced it, but I'm told that if you stand in the chamber, Eimear O'Connor, you've been in for these sunrises. It's so bright that you can read a book. It's perfectly clear, and all the carvings are perfectly clear.
And it's such a wonderfully intense experience. And even just watching the sun coming up there now this morning, I could feel the tears welling. It's incredible. It really does something to your sense of experience. It's wonderful, really, absolutely wonderful.
And even Gabriel Cooney, bringing the archaeologist's perspective to this, it is an intensely emotional experience. And no matter how much you contemplate the science of this, that is the foremost reaction, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, archaeologists are trying to understand people. That's what we fundamentally try and do. And as Geraldine said, this is charged in all sorts of ways. And it's fundamentally it's a religious experience as well. And Podrigan was right, I think, in that we are seeing here, if you like, a prehistoric religion, and the bringing together of ideas of life and death, the central questions that people ask now and that they asked in the past. That's what
and we know from excavations that there were ceremonies surrounding, or we suspect anyway, that there were ceremonies surrounding this site, and presumably at this occasion on this time of the year.
Yeah, I think now, as in the past, only a very small number of people would ever have been inside, and the bulk of people who'd gathered to celebrate probably for many, many hours the previous evening, long in through the dark nights, probably through rain, and they would have celebrated outside, making deposits of material. They would have waited for the news from the leaders and the people who were coming from outside, who had communicated with the ancestors, and waiting for the good word, if you like, that the sun was going to shine right through the air.
Probably doing exactly what we're doing, you know, waiting, hoping that there's no cloud. Exactly the same experience 5,000 years later.
I'm told that the weather was somewhat better 5,000 years ago. Is that right?
Slightly, 1 or 2 degrees better, yeah. Maybe now we're going into climatic warming, we'd have the same experience. But yes, it's slightly better, which would, of course, have implications for things like the growing season.
Yes.
Probably prolong the growing season, you know, a couple of months.
Well, clearly, even today, the seasons are hugely important. We need them to survive. But these people who live so close to the land and who understood so intimately the importance of the changes in the year and of the sun as a giver of life, and they would see it declining as the winter progressed, and this would be the moment at which it would turn.
That's right.
And which they would celebrate that moment.
I think for people standing outside as well, they see the way that the land is lit up by the sun as it comes across. And the ridge on which Newgrange stands is one of the first places to catch the sun. So this was probably happening in a more general form many hundreds of years before.
Because there is evidence, isn't there, that there were ceremonial sites, burial sites in this area predating Newgrange.
That's right. And on the Newgrange ridge itself, just to the west of the tomb, the big tomb, there are 2 smaller sites. And they're both aligned generally with their entrances towards the southeast. So you probably have in that the tradition going back many hundreds of years. But what Newgrange, if you like, is the bringing that complexity of ideas to a kind of a pinnacle that wasn't previously reached. That's what we're
And it's very obvious as well, Eimear, isn't it? It's not just, as Joe Duffy was saying there, it's not just an astrological clock or just a burial chamber or just some sort of
it's a symbol of celebration, very definitely.
It's all of those things. Because they could have measured the movement of the sun in much simpler, a couple of sticks in the ground.
On sticks, absolutely. So they wanted to leave something, I think, for us. They reached into their past They were looking towards their future, and we reach into their future for our past. And it's like joining the dots through the thousands of years.
It is an extraordinary moment of connection over all those millennia. And there again are the pictures that were, the live pictures that were seen from inside the chamber. You can almost see the sunbeams as they make their advance down the passageway.
Very powerful, isn't it?
The music of Eimear as the sun continues its progress down the passageway at Newgrange. This phenomenon lasts about 17 minutes, isn't that right, Gabriel? Yes. So I suppose in the past, even if it was a bit cloudy, they had the clouds might clear at some point.
Clouds might clear, and of course it's the couple of days on either side of the actual.
But it's only at this time of the year.
Only at this time.
And built very deliberately.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. It's not a coincidence or a fluke. Obviously, this was calculated to produce this effect.
I think very definitely, and I think we can say that as well because other monuments, while not doing it in the same spectacular way, have deliberate alignments built in. Some for equinoxes, like at Nowth, Maeshowe the Orkney. It's the sunset at winter that's recorded. The sun, the waning sun.
So tonight on Orkney, they will experience something like what we've experienced today.
Anne-Marie Moroney has suggested at Douth, in one of the tombs there, that you have the same effect at the sunset as on the winter solstice.
Right.
And I think all of that cumulative evidence supports the idea.
All right, let's go back and talk to Joe, who's outside the tumulus. Joe?
Indeed, Brian, it's still the sun getting stronger and stronger, as it will from now on, of course, which is the mark of the turning of the year. Lots of different people here, lots of different nationalities, Brian. Sangapella, good morning to you. You're from Scotland, you're a Buddhist monk, I know. Speak to me about the meaning for you as a non-Christian of what's happening here this morning, as indeed Christ only came 2,000 years ago, so this was in existence 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. Your sense of the event?
Well, for me it's the theme of light, the returning light, illumination, renewal. And also I feel as though we all have something in common here. I feel as though there's people from a number of different religions. I've seen witches and pagans. I feel as though it's a time we're all recognising the same solar symbol as something uplifting and of value, especially in this particular year.
And the unity of as we're almost sensing here, of the heavens and the earth, and is strong, isn't it?
Yes, I think that is what the symbolism of it is, but especially this theme of light and renewal and uplift and going forward together in a unified way rather than in different sects or groups or arguments.
That's one of the interesting things, that it is a tomb, but yet the sense you get here on this day, the winter solstice, is a sense of uplift, of spiritual uplift.
Yes, it is.
Let me talk to a local man, Peter Govern. Good morning to you, and Happy New Year to you.
Save yourself,
the turn of the natural year, beautiful part of the world, in this the unique, the oldest building in Europe. How long have you lived in the shadow of Newgrange, Peter?
About 35 years. And I've been coming here for years now. And this is nothing new to me. I've seen this many, many times.
And how do you describe the winter solstice? What's happening here today to your friend?
It's absolutely wonderful to be here. It's marvellous just to see the sun peeping over the hill of the Nore. And there's something about it, I always like to come. I come as often as I can. I've been in the tomb once when it's actually shone, like it did today. Like as I spoke earlier, I didn't think it was going to happen today, but it has happened. But as I was saying to you earlier, it's been here when the pyramids were being built. This was a very old building at the time. It was when Cromwell came to Drogheda. This was here. Yeah. Well, I remember coming here in time when there was nothing here. It was just a hole in the hill, and people came here and had a picnic, and it's a wonder to see it the way it's built today. And it's a great credit to the OPW and the people, and of course the people that worked here. There was for years and years young people around here on schemes built this and put it where we see it today, and it's marvellous to see. And it's marvellous the crowd here today.
And it's treasured by the local people now, and the visitor centre regulates it so well, yes. And that's made such an important impact on the area.
Of course, and what people forget is that it's so important, and the Boyne and all of it's happened all over the last, since the Good Friday Agreement and everything that's happened, the Boyne and everything, and it shines across the Boyne, and it's a new light, and it's great to be here, and you know, I hope to be here next year, or the first again the following year.
And you'll be here long after that.
Yes, and of course it was here, it was here when Meath bet won the All-Ireland.
Sure,
and I hope we'll be here when Meath wins the All-Ireland next year.
I'm sure you will. Back to you, Bryan. Still magnificent sense here. Beautiful, beautiful day, beautiful place. Most wondrous part of the world, most wondrous.
You can't, Joe, have a Meath man on the television, even at 9 o'clock in the morning at the summer solstice, without talking about Meath football. Thanks very much indeed for that. As I say, we're going to stay with the pictures which we're getting from inside the tumulus. I did say that there was a second piece of music from Eimear Quinn, and I think we're going to go to that now. Her first piece, if you invoked, as it was called, Invocation, the sunrise, and it seemed to work. And now, as by way of a thank you, by way of a celebration for the sunrise that we have seen, she has a second piece, and it is entitled, appropriately, Illumination. Here's Eimear Quinn.
Gift of the sun, shining. Gift of the sun, shining. Spirits are reborn, many days, many years. Shining, gift of the sun, all the cycles come before, many days, many years. Shining gift of the sun, shining Take this new dawn and sing. Take this new dawn and sing. Take this new dawn and
Quinn with illumination. Thank you again, Eimear. That was it was delightful. And the pictures again that you were looking at as Eimear was singing were the pictures from outside and inside Newgrange, and you can see there the advance of the sun down into the central chamber. I think that's what we're still waiting for at about 9:15. The moment at which the central chamber will be illuminated, and the small group of people, including the Taoiseach and other guests, as well as people who've been on that waiting list for at least 10 years, will see the central chamber, 6-metre tall ceiling above them, illuminated by the sun as it comes in, and our cameras are there for that. We're still with us here is Eimear O'Connor. Eimear, it would seem, looking at the scale of this, that it must have served a purpose beyond just the immediate community, the people who lived around. And you believe that it was a place of pilgrimage?
I believe absolutely it was a place of pilgrimage, absolutely. And I think there's a connection with those white stones on the front. They were taken from Wicklow, and the grey stones on the front were taken from, I think it's County Down. So there's something about moving around the country and making pilgrimage with these stones and bringing them to this place. Of course, I'm not sure why, and of course pilgrimage is our word, it's our cultural context. But also I think that you're looking at a visual representation of the female earth. And what we're looking at here is the counterbalance, the spiritual balance, the balance of yin and yang. So I think that we're looking at a representation of equality, an ancient spiritual representation of equality, working on many levels.
Gabriel Cooley, what about that, the importance of Newgrange, not just to the Boyne Valley, but to an area much wider than that?
Yeah, and I think we could see it, I'd perhaps phrase it in a different way, in that you have here the coming together of elements from many different parts of the country, which I think again symbolises a new kind of landscape that's brought together in this monument. Both local materials from both north and south, bringing, as I say, creating something new and different. So I think it's not just important for the immediate area, but also for this much bigger area, that, as Eimear was mentioning.
And what about the restoration? Do we see it today more or less as it would have been seen 5,000 years ago?
Well, this is the question. I mean, I think Professor O'Kelly was convinced through experiment and engineering work and so on that it would have stood as a vertical or near vertical wall of quartz. Now there is debate and argument as to whether it was like that or whether it may have been more on a sort of gentler incline. But certainly there was a very significant cluster of quartz.
So I gave her that, as you see, is the Taoiseach, Minister for the Arts, Culture and the Gaeltacht, Síle de Valera, and others coming out. So the illumination, we take it then, is over. Well, not quite. There's still some light inside the passageway. And it will be interesting to hear what they and the others who were inside have to say about what they experienced. There you can see people making their way out. In the centre of the passageway, it becomes very narrow, isn't that right?
That's right. It's very constricted.
You've got to manoeuvre your way through.
Yes, and I think this is part of the very deliberate architectural effect of the tomb, that you go into this, the effect of going through a very long tunnel and then opening out into the chamber. This dramatic effect of the roof opening up.
Womb-like, I have to say.
Womb-like, Eimear, womb-like. Yes. Well, emerging from the womb,
yes.
The people who are fortunate enough to be inside. And I think talking to some of them is Joe. Over to you, Joe.
Indeed, Bryan, beautiful back here. Taoiseach has emerged, Celia Larkin has emerged, Minister de Valera has emerged. Taoiseach.
It was absolutely wonderful, Joe. It could not have worked better. I was here 2 years ago, and unfortunately, while it was a great experience and great to be here, nothing happened in the chamber. But it just opened up, I'm sure you've seen on TV, from almost a little pencil line that ran down along by our feet and opened up into what they tell me is 17 centimetres. But it was terrific. I mean, from total darkness in the space of about 4 minutes, it just went totally bright. I mean, the people on the other side, you could see them quite plain, and it's 20 feet high in there, so a wonderful atmosphere. When it's very cold, it's a tremendous atmosphere. But it just moves across the ground, moves across the chamber and down the chamber. precisely as the stories have been told on it. So it's wonderful. And to think that this has seen 5 millenniums into its 6th millennium, it's quite extraordinary. And I think from all of it's been learned here in the last 40 years to the people who've worked on it, they've brought a wonderful story. I mean, it's one of the best things in the world, and it's great that so many people could see it today.
Celia Larkin, what do you think? What was your own impression inside?
Well, it was just mind-boggling to see how they could have worked out the dimensions of it 5,000 years ago, or 5,000. No, it's more than 5,000 years ago. Isn't it just? Yeah. But I'm just humbled by it.
Very spiritual?
Yes, it is. It is. It's a very spiritual experience. We were here 2 years ago and it didn't happen. And you've no idea of what it's like when it does actually happen. And then to emerge into the sunlight, it's just like coming into a brand new world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sheila De Valera.
Well, it is a very special experience. It's a magical experience. I was lucky enough to be here last year, and I did see the light coming into the chamber, but I think at the beginning of this new millennium it has even more significance. And for everybody here, for those that were in the chamber and indeed here on the spot, as it were, it really is a very special experience. Do you not find that yourself?
I do. I just feel the sun on your face, the warmth, the new year, the growth, the colour, the strength, the life.
And it's the colour of the light, I think, is wonderful. We were just saying there that the quality and the golden colour of that light is very special.
You'd almost feel, that it was really warm. It was, of course, there's no heat in it at all because it's as strong as you could possibly see, and against the stone. And were explaining to us, some of the experts here explained that these stones, even though it was Stone Age time, that these were brought from Wicklow and from Carlingford. They moved several hundred miles, and so they had to be a very sophisticated society to be able to plan this. And if the average age in those times was under 40, it had to be planned out over time. So I think it's certainly a wonderful part of our heritage, and to think that anything could work out so well all those millenniums later, it's extraordinary. And but at so many of these sites, I suppose we've been talking on television about them, but just listen to people here who spent a lifetime working on them. Professor Oglesby has spent 40 years on Nout and Doubt, and just to listen to him, it's so extraordinary. But it's a great part of Irish civilization, something we can be immensely proud of.
And we're discovering more and more. I mean, your department is discovering more and more as we dig deeper into the chamber, so to speak.
Absolutely, and it's amazing to think that this particular chamber is 1,000 years older than Stonehenge, for example, and 500 years older than the pyramids. So, I mean, that really puts it in international, in world history. It's of very great importance.
And some of the archaeologists, Bryan, that are working on it, I hear Frank Prendergast is in the back of the crowd there. Frank, you're discovering more and more about Newgrange. There's much more work still to be done, which means the significance and the meanings of it, there are more to be found.
Well, Joe, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm an archaeoastronomer. So I'm not talking as a professional archaeologist here, but from my knowledge of the archaeological work, most of the work that has been done here now sort of has revealed what we know about Newgrange, but that doesn't solve the mysteries of Newgrange, and to my knowledge there is no further excavation intended as far as I know. But the mysteries of Newgrange still need more work, and in that context I know some of us as astronomers and archaeoastronomers will continue to investigate this site to try and solve some of these mysteries so that we can better understand the activities of these societies at that time.
Okay. Someone said to me a few minutes ago, Bryan, when we asked them in the crowd what did they think, they just said smashing. It's absolutely smashing. A good local word to describe what's happening here this morning.
Absolutely, Joe. Smashing, and I think, as Celia Larkin said, humbling as well. I think that very accurately captures, I'm sure, the reaction of very many people there outside Newgrange, certainly those of us here in the visitor centre, and I'm sure the many people watching this on television, on the internet perhaps, in Ireland and around the world. It is a humbling experience. Well, now, to mark the experience, to mark this occasion, we asked perhaps Ireland's most famous poet, Seamus Heaney, to recite a poem about Newgrange and about the solstice. And he agreed to do that, and we're going to see that in just a moment. But what I want to do is I want to just read you his words by way of introduction to the poem, which is called A Dream of Solstice. And this is what he writes. He writes that Newgrange is an architectural manifestation of what is implied by the rhyme between womb and tomb. The chamber is both a grave, an ash pit where the ashes of the dead were laid, and a womb, a place waiting for the light. Here is Seamus Heaney with A Dream of Solstice.
A dream of solstice. Like somebody who sees things when he's dreaming, and after the dream lives with the aftermath of what he felt, no other trace remaining. So I live now, for what I saw departs and is almost lost, although a distilled sweetness still drops from it into my inner heart. It is the same with snow the sun releases, the same as when, in wind, the hurried leaves swirl round your ankles, and the shaking hedges that had flopped their catkin cufflace and green sleeves are sleet-whipped bare. Dawn light began stealing through the cold universe to County Meath, over weirs where the Boyne water, fulgent, darkling, turns its thick axle, over rick-sized stones, millennia deep in their own unmoving and unmoved alignment. And now, as the planet turns earth-brow and templed earth, the corbelled rock, the unsung tonsure of the burial mounds, I stand with pilgrims, tourists, media folk, and all admitted to the wired-off hill. Headlights of juggernauts heading for Dundalk, Flight 104 from New York audible as it descends on schedule into Dublin. Boyne Valley Centre car park already full, waiting for seedling light on roof and windscreen. And as in Illo Temporary, people marked the king's gold dagger when he plunged it into the hilt in unsown ground, to start the work of the world again, to speed the plough and plant the riddled grain. We watch through murk and over-boiling cloud for the melted glow of sunrise, for an eastern dazzle to send first light like share shine in a furrow, steadily deeper, farther available, creeping along the floor of the passage grave to backstone and capstone, to hold its candle inside the cosmic hill. Who dares say love at this cold coming? Who would not dare say it? Is this the moved wheel that the poet spoke of, the star pivot, life's Perseid in the ash pit of the dead? Like his, my speech cannot tell what the mind needs told. An infant's tongue, milky with breast milk, would be more articulate.
Seamus Heaney, A Dream of Solstice. And just a final word from our two guests here in the Brún na Bóinne Visitor Centre. A final thought, Eimear O'Connor?
The final thought that I would have is that maybe we should all take this time to be silent in the new year and think about our sense of spirituality.
Gabriel O'Connor?
The importance of the past, its continuing importance in the present, I think, is something that we should cherish and look after.
And anybody who wants to find out more about Newgrange, as good a place to start, Gabriel, is with your own just published volume, Landscapes of Neolithic Ireland, which is just, as I say, gone into print. We wish you well with that. We thank you for being with us, both Eimear and Gabriel. We thank all our guests here in the centre and up at the Newgrange Monument. It has been an extraordinary morning. For my own part, I don't think that I've ever seen anything that has quite moved me in the way that this has, and I'm sure that's been the experience for many of you, because we were, as you were, watching it here on the monitors in our temporary studio in the Visitors Centre. And I think for all of us, whether we were up at Newgrange at the site itself or here or watching on television, it has been a unique experience. We thank you for being with us, and we wish you, from all of us here in Newgrange, a Happy New Year. Good morning.
Stay with us here on 2 for News 2 headlines with Susan Byrne coming up next. We'll never really know how people celebrated the last millennium. This time, we will.
The Corrs Unplugged. Available now.
In 1883, Carlsberg created a way of cultivating pure yeast, which revolutionized the entire brewing process, and then shared that knowledge with other well-known brewers. Pretty generous, wouldn't you say? Sharing their brewing techniques like that? You know, something tells me they might have kept just one or two things to themselves.
Carlsberg, probably the best lager in the world.
4 great reads from RTE this Christmas. Charles Dickens visits to Ireland. The handsome Ironing the Land from the TV series of the same name. Colm Keen's A Cut Above the Rest. And that essential GAA collection, A Season of Sundays 99.
An inkjet print is made up of millions of dots. A great one is made up of millions of dots that are pin sharp. Only the Epson stylus has a crystal print head that gives you the pin sharpest dots. And that means pretty impressive prints. Epson, there's no comparison.
Wesley Snipes stars in an explosive thriller.
$2 million in mud.
Drop Zone.
These people are killers. You leave the cop stuff to me.
You are way out of your league up here, cowboy.
Close it out, now.
At 30,000 feet, who can you trust?
They're looking to point fingers at somebody, and you and Terry are it.
Wesley Snipes and Gary Busey star in Drop Zone tonight at 9:05 on Network 2.
Hello there. The Venezuelan government now says that up to 50,000 people may have been killed in the mudslides and flooding which swept across the north of the country over the weekend. The Red Cross says the shanty towns where 1/3 of the country's population live were the worst hit areas. There's been a joint appeal by the voluntary agencies for international aid. A Dublin man has been given a 7-year suspended jail sentence for the manslaughter of his 27-year-old son 2 years ago. 59-year-old Michael O'Brien was found guilty of the manslaughter of his son Fergus at the family home in Vernon Avenue in Clontarf in October 1997. The Norwegian state phone company Telenor is to go ahead with the hostile bid for ESAT Telecom on its own after the collapse of the merger with Sweden's Telia. In a statement just a short time ago, ESAT said their board had rejected the offer. In Britain, the former Tory minister Neil Hamilton is facing financial ruin after losing his libel case against the owner of Harrods, Mohammed Al Fayed. The High Court jury ruled that Mr Al Fayed had established that Mr Hamilton had been corrupt while an MP. Mr Hamilton denied that he had accepted cash and favours for asking parliamentary questions on behalf of Mr Al Fayed. Finally, Irish group Westlife are lined up to have the last British #1 of the century. The band have sold more than 50,000 copies of their single Seasons in the Sun, beating Sir Cliff Richard's current single, The Millennium Prayer, by nearly 20,000 copies. And that's it from the newsroom for now.
Good evening. On the day of the winter solstice, it turned out to be relatively mild, dry and clear in the morning and afternoon, the rain though pushing in the evening.